Everyone, from me, Brent Graham of goodforthegame.co.za. It's time for the Handicap Rugby Chat that matters Thursday night. Of course, no Six Nations. Gee, I'm going to miss the Six Nations. What an incredible finish that was. Although not so much from a betting point of view for me. It was a bit of an interesting one last week. I actually did really well in the Super Rugby, even hit a few winning margins. But the Six Nations are 0 for 3 for me. And my biggest bet, under 62.5 in France versus England, well, that was made to look pretty silly. Never a runner at all. So, yeah, but disappointing that one. I've only got one guest on the show tonight, and I see I've still got last week's Best Bets banner up there, but I've only got one guest, and he hasn't come in yet, and that's the Moss Man. So I'm sure he'll be joining us any second, and we'll go through the Super Rugby and URC. See, we've got a few guys have joined us live already. Feel free to make comments, particularly if I am on my own for any length of time. It'll certainly help to give me something to chat about. But, yeah, incredible finish to that Six Nations. But, wow, France conceded something like, 96 points, I think it was, in their last 2 weeks of action. And, yeah, I don't know. Great rugby to watch. Make no mistake. A brilliant tournament. But, yeah, you do have to wonder just a little bit about the quality of the defense in a game like that. Right. Well, Nathan hasn't popped in yet, so I'm going to get going a little bit with the URC. I'm going to be totally upfront with you. I haven't had a lot of chance to do homework this week. It's been absolutely crazy on the work front, which is one of the reasons why I've only managed to organize one guest for the show, which could backfire me quite badly if Nathan doesn't actually come onto the show. It could backfire very badly indeed. But I know that Nathan is not really following the URC that closely. So let's get started with the Bulls against Cardiff tomorrow. Now, this game taking place at Loftus. I just want to check the kickoff time. I know it's nice that there's a South Africa game because it means you got a 7 o'clock kickoff and then you got the 2 9:45 kickoffs coming after that. And in fact, what I'm going to do to make life a little bit easier, and Mark Dunphy, let me just stop the show right there. Mark, great to have you back on the show, man. I know you've had some health issues and that, so I hope you're well. But good to see you, and hard luck on your Irish. You guys must have been thinking at one point that you had somehow, and I say somehow, won the Six Nations because after that opening defeat to France, you must have all given up hope. And the fact that you came so close, very, very impressive indeed. But great to have you back on the show. And, well, we're going to talk about that game now. Luando willing to put the entire house in the Bulls' total points overs. And the only thing that makes me a little bit nervous, and I'm actually going to, let me share screen here. We can actually, well, we can sort of talk about it there because there's not much more to see on the Bet Exchange site. But this is their handicap. Minus 21.5 the Bulls. I saw Southpaw on the Good for the Game forum. He went. He took the minus 19.5 earlier, and he made an interesting comment in his forum post. He said this handicap he reckons is going to start about minus 25.5. So it'll be interesting to see he's correct on that one. But guys, we are going to come back. Let's come back to URC because I see popping down in the studio. It's about 8 o'clock in the morning, I think, in Auckland. We'll welcome him to the show, and it's the Moss Man. Moss Man, good to see you, mate. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks. Yeah, it's bang on 8 here. No, it's not 5 past.
No, not at all. Not at all. But good to have you on, and good to see the Admiral popping in there as well. I was just saying to the guys, I was so busy this week that, I gave you your customary early sort of message, and I never even got a chance to grab other guests. I was thinking, I hope Nathan does come in, but I know you always do, so I always know you will. And good to see you there. And just quickly, Nathan, just to wrap up on the Six Nations. I mean, I know you also fancied the unders in the France game last week. I mean, I went with it as my best bet of the weekend. My word, 48, 46, 94 points in the game. But overall, just a great tournament. Personally, for me, the last week in particular, not very successful betting wise. How did you end up?
Yeah, last week wasn't good, but the other weeks were good, and it was as you said, it was a great tournament to watch, and plenty of twists and turns along the way. So I mean, it was a kind of overall was a pretty good advertisement for rugby, and that's always important.
And now tell me, I know you haven't really been following the URC. Have you had a look at all of this weekend's fixtures, or you still not? Because I thought maybe Six Nations finishing, you might start looking at it again.
I haven't at this stage, no. So there's, and you've probably heard me say this before, but there's certain times of the year I think where URC becomes like a little bit of a lottery, and that's kind of the worst thing that you need as a better. Like, I mean, if everything's just throwing darts, then nobody can win, but and obviously it's not quite that as extreme as that, but I having bet this and observed it over the last few years, like I do think that there are periods of the year around the internationals, around some of the European competitions where just the selections become weird, the motivations become weird. I think at the beginning of the season, at the end, like, teams are going full noise, things become maybe a bit more predictable in a way that suits say somebody that's originating or modeling.
100%. I totally agree with you there. So we'll get into Super Rugby, and then if you like to hop off after that, that's fine. I'll run through the fixtures. I'm mainly going to focus on the South African fixtures, but let's get into the Super Rugby. We're of course up to round 6. I was looking at the outright betting. Chiefs are favourites there ahead of the Crusaders at the moment. And first game, Highlanders plus 9.5 against the Hurricanes. And we've got a 55.5 point total points line here. Nathan, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, when you look at the kind of upcoming week's betting card, there's certain games that kind of jump off the page, and this one was the one that sort of jumped off for me. This opened at 4.5, and it was partly just where I kind of think the two teams are, and partly sort of injury related. But I just thought that the Hurricanes were a great bet at 4.5. Clearly, a lot of people have thought the same thing, because this is absolutely steamed, like, to get to 9.5. So to explain, I think, why it's got where it has. So the Highlanders are missing Cam Miller, and they've got Pasatoa at 10, who personally I don't think I've ever seen him at 10. Like, he played at centre for Northland. He didn't play much at all really for the Brumbies. Just didn't get much of a run. So I don't know what his background is at 10. I've seen him come off the bench for the Highlanders, and it didn't do anything to kind of change my mind on that. And then I think the other thing is that they've kind of got cluster injuries really at lock. So they lost Lavanini, lost Mitch Dunshea. And I think from memory, they've got TK Howden playing at lock. So, a guy who's normally a loose forward just kind of filling in. And I think that's sort of the last thing that you need when you're coming up against somebody like Warner Dearns, who's an absolute monster. So I think, line out time could be a problem, and also just general kind of bulk. I think the Hurricanes are, I mean, you'll need to probably see the stats when they come up on screen, but I suspect that the Hurricanes are a much bigger forward pack. So yeah, whether I would, I mean, look, I'm right there on this number. Like, when I saw it in the week, as I said, I thought it should be around 10, and it is 10. So yeah, I think at the moment it's I can see this being double digits, but like, if I had just woken up this morning and seen that number and that's all I had to bet, I would probably not be betting this game.
Yeah, fair advice. You missed the early line. That's where you expected it now.
Yeah, but that said, I mean, 9.5 would be the high watermark. Like, I personally have not seen anything as high as that. I still see 7.5 out there, and at 7.5, I no problem betting on the Hurricanes at 7.5. So, as I said, you just shop around. If it is 9.5, then it's jumped 2 points since I went to bed.
Yeah, good. Well, I see there's 8.5 I'm just looking now, 8.5 at PokerBet, but the plus is almost even money there now. And at Bet Exchange have gone 9.5, but there the sort of the minus is sort of above the 9 to 10 mark. So yeah, it's definitely shifting up. But like you say, you might still be able to get 7.5. Just interesting, Nathan. The Admiral took, and I did see this line early in the week. He took under 57 points, so under 57.5. And Wonder commenting that the points line looks a little bit high. Admiral still happy at 55. What are you thinking? Most of these New Zealand derbies, well, and I can't, you could probably find some that gone the other way, but I get the feeling the New Zealand derbies have been generally fairly low scoring this season. That's the feeling I have. I'm not sure if you've looked at the points line here.
I think that's probably a fair statement. Yeah, I mean, and 55.5 also seems pretty low. Like, I think there's definitely bigger numbers out there.
Yes.
I can see others. So if you like the under, I think you'll be able to do a little bit better than 55. So
yeah, I see 56.5 at, like, locally at PokerBet. So yeah, As you say, if you shop around, you might still be fortunate and even get a 57.5 perhaps out there, or at least there's definitely 56.5 available.
Yeah. So I don't know what hospital the Admiral works at, but you don't want to come in unwell around this time on a Friday morning, because you might get some distracted care. You might end up with the wrong drugs or something. It could be a potentially life-threatening situation here.
Yeah, I can imagine during the games. I mean, geez, watching on his phone while he's busy operating. Yeah, no. The Admiral. Right, let's bring up the next game then. Brumbies plus 3.5 here against the Chiefs. And we've got a pretty high points line in Canberra, 58.5. Brumbies, of course, and I know if Admiral were on the show, he'd probably be telling us Brumbies having to travel back from Fiji. And I know Admiral often says that's not always the easiest thing to do here, but we do have the Brumbies underdogs at home against the Chiefs. What are your views?
Yeah, so trends like that are interesting. Like in general, if it's something that's explainable, like I think that's fine if it's something that's logical. So I guess the thought process is that maybe it's. I mean, I have heard in the past. In fact, I can't remember who I was listening to who was talking about the conditions in Fiji. I don't think it was for a game this year. It might have been last year, but players needing medical attention or something after the game I'm assuming it was like heat stroke or dehydration or something because of the conditions. So I can see how that would definitely take a toll. And then possibly the travel as well. There's I guess there's a more overheads probably in traveling to Fiji than there is between New Zealand and Australia, for example, just in terms of how long it takes, or not so much the actual distance itself, but just the transitions and all the rest of it, because it's pretty easy to travel between New Zealand and Australia in terms of passports, etc. So yeah, we had one instance I think of that earlier this season, and it didn't work out, which I can't remember who it was that was coming back from there.
I think it was could have been the Hurricanes. They hammered the Waratahs. I think.
Yes, that's right. No, you're 100% right. Yeah. So, but from memory, his sample size was pretty big. I think he said it was like 25 and 9 or something a little bit like that. So yeah. So when I first looked at this, because it opened at 6.5, I quite liked the Brumbies, and it's jumped around a lot since then. It's sort of come into 3.5. You'll see kind of a range of different numbers. I want to back the Brumbies, but I don't know if I will. And I'm just not. I'm not 100% convinced by them. And some of it, I think, is, and I probably said this to myself like a few weeks ago, is that we all can see that perhaps they're down on personnel compared to previous years, but their results have still been good. Like, notwithstanding last week, which that's a banana skin that trips up all kinds of teams, so it's almost a bit of an outlier of its own. So I don't 100% know quite what to make of the Brumbies yet. The Chiefs are. In South Africa, do you have the term? Do you know what a flat track bully is? It's usually a cricket term, I think.
Yes.
Where
100% know that term. Yeah.
That's the impression I get.
You beat the easy, you win the easy games and you win them well, but when you come up against the top teams, you don't perform. Let's call it.
Yeah, that's right.
You don't perform as well.
So I think from a cricket perspective, it's like, when the pitch is doing nothing, you get out there and just smash everybody. But as soon as it starts moving around a little bit, like it shows up your technique. Yeah. I think the Chiefs are a little bit, in my mind, a little bit like that. Especially in the early parts of seasons or against bad teams, they'll run up big scores. But when they get to the pointy end of the season, or perhaps they have trickier fixtures, they do sometimes struggle. I think they're flawed in some ways. I couldn't tell you exactly why, but So this is the kind of game where I could see them struggling just for fluency, just for whatever. But on the flip side, I think Admiral just popped up that stat. I do have that in the back of my mind. So I think I'll probably end up with no bet on this. But if it was a forced bet, I'd probably look to the Brumbies, but I definitely hope to get something better than 3.5.
I see definitely is 4.5 at PokerBet, 3.5 at Betix. So if you shop around, you could probably locally get a little bit better than that as well. But it looks quite a well handicapped game this to me at the moment. I just thought points what do you think of points at 58.5? To me, that just has a bit of a high feel to it.
Yeah, it's too high. I think. Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, it's as I said, it kind of feeds into that flat track bully idea that yeah, absolutely, the Chiefs are capable of running up big scores, and they'll make you look silly at times. When you'll bet under, like that Moana game was a good example. Like just flew over by miles, but it's a little bit like that with betting points. Like you are going to look silly, like like the France game on occasion.
Yes, for sure.
But it's not about like the by how much it goes over or under. It's just how frequently you can get it right.
No, exactly. I mean, if you're betting fixed odds and you can hit 7 out of 10, you're doing well. Even if the 3 that miss by 30 points, and that's the big difference between fixed odds and spread betting, which is spread betting. If you're wrong and you're very wrong, you really are in trouble. But spread betting is. I mean, I've often mentioned spread betting on the show, but I can honestly say that I spread bet quite seriously for a while. But the thing that stopped me in the end was the pressure. You never have. Even if you're making money, you could still, a try against you takes money away, and you just never. And it's by all means, it's great. If I was, I'd probably do it again, maybe one day. I don't know, but gee, it's just that impression. At least, last week, even if you take the France game last week, I mean, I pretty much knew my fate quite a long way out. Like, unders is not going to arrive here. But now, if I was on the unders on points, I would have had to sweat every single try coming in. And
you'd be thinking, how bad is it going to get?
No, exactly. And in the end, I can honestly say it was the pressure. It was the pressure. I used to be so grumpy on the weekends because I was watching like 7 games and spread betting. And I realized like, this is actually, people think there is a fun element to it. But if you really are betting pretty seriously and you just, and you got to concentrate for the full 80 minutes of the game and it was just got a bit much for me.
Oh, I could imagine. Like, I mean, there's so much psychology to betting, to a kind of a high level or to a serious kind of level. And that spread betting it'd just crank up the variance so much because, like let's say you made, as you were saying, you made kind of 10 bets on a weekend and, you'd landed, I don't know, maybe you had sort of 6 out of 9, like coming into the final game, like with fixed odds, you kind of know, like, I'm going to finish up, so, whatever happens. But with the spread betting, you could lose it all. Like it could just all disappear. Like,
No, exactly. It's as I say, fond memories, but also some shocking memories as well. But certainly did enjoy my time with spread betting. Right, the Fijian Drua, the day of them starting underdogs at home might be something of the past. There's also, I think, been a bit of money for them this week. Nathan, the handicap I got you. I see. Let me quickly look at their 4.5 at PokerBet and 5.5 at BetExchange, and points line here of 55.5.
Yeah, I think 5.5 is pretty standard across the board. It opened at -0.5, so they were a slight favorite, like even right from the jump. And then obviously what people have seen since then is Drua have rolled out the exact same team, I believe, and the Reds have rotated a little bit, possibly not as much as I thought they might, but I think this is just classic kind of Drua conditions. They'll obviously they'll obviously adapt to those conditions far better than the opposition that they're playing. So it's interesting because it's like I don't know that we would have seen a number like this in past years. It's almost that the messages has got well and truly got through, and because it's not a bad Reds team that they're putting out there. So I still favour the Drua. It's not like the most confident bet. Like it's not compared to, say, I was talking about the Hurricanes number that was kicking around at the end of the week. I just felt you could fire into the Hurricanes with full confidence, knowing all the kind of factors that were on the table. I think the thing was the Drua is that there's always the potential for them to just get it wrong, just blow up and as I said, it's not a bad Reds team. I don't think these teams obviously don't turn up in Fiji to lose, so they're just thinking about managing their squad, and sometimes that and the conditions trips teams up. So I think from memory, the Reds might have won here pretty handily last year. So yeah, it's Drua for me, but like as I said, it's kind of like at the lower end of the confidence scale.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. I actually kept this game Drua -3.5. So initially I did see value in them. Now it's actually, in theory, I'm looking at it going, potentially the other way. But I'm also leaning towards the Drua. Yeah, but you said something there which sort of hit home there, and it's like we can't, almost implying we can't quite trust these Drua yet. They have delivered a few times at home, but they also can go missing. I mean, even in the first week, I think they lost quite badly they were about 9-point favorites from what I recall, and they lost to Moana Pacifica at home in the first week. So yeah, I'm not too trusting them. And I know a few of the guys in the live chat and watching the show on the replay will also know when I mentioned the Pumas, the South African Currie Cup team. Always one of those teams you want to back when they're underdogs, but when they become favorites, suddenly something changes. They're running out there knowing that they're favorites, and their whole way they play sometimes changes. So perhaps the Drua fit into that mold a little bit as well. We've got 2 more Super Rugby games to go. This is a big handicap. I actually kept it very close. I was 26.5 Pacifica. I think there was certainly some 28.5 I saw early in the week. So it looks like a little bit of money for Pacifica, and a high points line here of 66.5. This game, I think, is taking place in North Harbour, Nathan.
That's right. Yeah, so it's just down the road from me. So I might even be there for this one. I've actually been to a couple of games in the last week. So I was at the Blues Moana game last weekend, and the Blues Crusaders game the weekend before. So yeah, it's now that my he's 5 and he's kind of at age where you can kind of take him along to these sorts of things, and he's right into it. But I'm raising a Blues fan. I'm not quite sure how that's happened. So as a Chiefs man, it's a little bit disturbing. We'll see what I can do about that. But yeah, there's plenty of enthusiasm for the Blues at the moment. So this actually it opened at 30.5, and I think people very quickly realised, like I wasn't quick enough to get on that, but people quickly realised that was just a little bit too much, maybe more than just a little bit. So it came down even before the teams had been announced, but since they've come out, we can see that, like, I think there's a guy called Cooper Grant who to be honest, I don't recall ever seeing him play. I'm assuming he's a Tasman player who's starting at 10. So no Camera, no Rayhana. So you got a rookie 10. You're missing Havili, who's out injured, and I think if you're going to play a rookie 10, it would be great. In an ideal world, you'd have a guy like Havili outside you at 12. Just to sort of help steady the ship a little bit. So a little bit of rotation, and I'm not sure quite how fluid the Crusaders will be this week. Moana have picked like their kind of full strength side, and I think they like it at Albany. They play well. So yeah, I think if I go anywhere with this, it will probably be on the plus, and I do have a sneaky that this could be way closer than what the score implies, and yeah, I'm just sort of seeing what numbers will kick around, because I think 25.5. I think I've seen 26.5, and see, it's a big cap, and I could quite easily see that coming in.
And if it is a close game, as you suggest, would that lean you more towards unders here? I'm very nervous to say unders in Pacifica games, but I see the Admiral is saying he prefers the unders play here to the plus handicap.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like, and as I said, what tends to happen too is that if money comes for the Crusaders, then the points total will go up, and so you can. I think for a lot of these games, you kind of can wait and see a little bit, see which direction things go, and then if you take the best number that's kind of on offer. So yeah, I would agree with the unders as well. But I think the other thing, having been at that game last week as well, is I think that Moana were actually a bit unlucky, like against the Blues. Like in the first half, they were right in the contest, and they had 2, maybe 3 tries, like literally just chalked off by the TMO for kind of random things that had happened off the ball. And yeah, because it was quite strange because I was sitting there obviously with my 5-year-old, and the score would go up, Moana scored a try or whatever, and then the score would go down, and he was asking me, why did the score go down? It's just like, well, some referee saw something, someone did something wrong, something that wasn't particularly obvious to anybody. So yeah, I actually think they were unlucky. Like they were, as I said, like, on a different day, maybe a couple of those tries stick, and there's a bit of scoreboard pressure, coming back on the Blues maybe, and maybe the game turns out differently. But I saw some signs there at least that they are going to be competitive, and I think in a game like this with the Crusaders with a little bit of rotation, I think they could stay in the fight.
And would you throw a few I'll call it rand or New Zealand dollars at like sort of 11 to 1 on their win? I mean, it is a sort of, I mean, every now and again you just get these shock results where a team will actually win a game from nowhere. Would you say that that price is tempting enough, or would you like a bit bigger before you threw any money at that?
Oh, it's just not something that I really look at.
Yes. You focus on the cap.
Yeah, like, and it's not that. I guess like what I'm doing is like I'm not really assessing the probability of big upsets. Like I think sometimes, and the people that do it, and I know there's people out there. Like I know you get people on the forums who sort of come up with this stuff, and I don't know what their methodology is. Like I don't know if they actually like are genuinely assessing the probabilities and saying that, like, they think it's wrong, or they're just sort of thinking, I can just take a flyer on this, and if it's a small amount of money and it doesn't matter, and if it sticks, it sticks, and it's just pocket change that I found down the back of the couch that I'll just stick on Moana.
No, got you 100%. What Admiral saying is Mossboy going to start to learn to model soon? Or do you mean catwalk modeling, Admiral? I can picture Admiral. He's busy operating on someone there, and he's like typing at the same time. There, may need to explain yourself. And also to mention, if anybody wants to come on and chat URC, I'm happy to put the link up if anyone wants to come and chat. Otherwise, I'm just going to run through the fixtures after this. But let's get on to the last Super Rugby game. Waratahs +6.5 against the Blues. Before I bring you in, I'm quickly going to look what I capped. I capped this exactly 6.5. So I didn't see any, I don't see any obvious value there based on my early handicap. What are you doing here?
Yeah, sorry. When you were saying that, I was just imagining, like Admiral in the operating room, and texting away, and then afterwards can't find his phone. You're thinking, oh. There's an episode of Seinfeld, I think, where I don't know if you're familiar with Seinfeld, but like where
I love Seinfeld. Yeah.
The Junior Mint episode, where he ends up like he's watching an operation, and the mint ends up like inside.
Oh, brilliant! When it falls from, that was brilliant. Yeah. Yes,
that's what I've got in my mind.
I can imagine them sewing the guy up, and our voices coming from inside the chap because Admiral had it on there. This one handicap to me looks right, Nathan.
Yeah, I think so. Like it looks about right. It's also it feels like a little bit of a banana skin in some ways. Like it's one of these games that you could see kind of going either way, and because I think that the Blues, like unlike the Chiefs, are not really set up to put away bad teams to the same extent. It's just not their style. That's kind of the way they've decided to play. They've kind of, and they look like they've kind of reverted back to maybe the 2024 Blues, which is a good model probably to follow, because they won the title that year. So I don't know about this one. I don't really have a strong feeling on it. I would lean Blues if I could get a better number than that, but it's right around the cusp of where, it just takes it for the game to turn into a bit of a slog. And the Waratahs, I'm not a particularly big fan of what I've seen from them, and I don't like teams that are highly reliant on big plays. And it's for them, it's the kind of the Jorgensen effect. In the same way, I think that the Highlanders are reliant on Tangitau, that you can't. They can do it for a few weeks in a row, but it's like you can't expect these like high variance plays to save you every week. So yeah, so I'm not the biggest fan of the Waratahs. As I said, Others been asking, so I guess I haven't really made up my mind about what I would do in this game.
Any views on the points there before we?
It's definitely not my favorite game of the week.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
I just want to look what time it is in South Africa. I think it's Sunday morning. This one I haven't had a look at.
Well, sorry, the Blues not really being set up to put teams away. And it would be.
Oh, sorry, it is Saturday. It is Saturday.
Saturday night.
Yeah.
Game in Australia. Saturday night. So yeah, as I said, way.
Okay. Well, Johanna's saying
we've got a bit of delay on the line here, but
sorry, man.
And then you've got a Waratahs team that is.
Sorry, Nathan. I don't know. It might be.
We always get some sort of form of technical issue every week. So
at least we got to the end of Super Rugby before it really kicked in. So
no worries.
So no, and Johanna's coming in there. Blues 1 to 12, and they won. I'm also very undecided on this game at the moment. Yeah.
Maybe I mean Nathan, I don't know if it's me, but yeah.
No problem. It's some sort of it does make it a bit tricky. But anyway, we got to the end of Super Rugby, so I'm going to call it on that. I'm just going to run through some URC games. But thanks a lot for joining, and have a good Friday and also a good weekend. I hope it's a good punting one for you.
No worries. You too. Thanks.
Excellent. Thanks to Nathan, the Moss man. Yeah, at the end there, the two of us were just struggling because something wrong with the timing. So I was probably talking over him without realizing it as well. And guys, let's get into a little bit of URC action then. I did bring this handicap up earlier. We've got Bulls minus 21.5 against Cardiff. Southpaw on the good for the game forum. Very strong on the Bulls here at minus 19.5. The money has started coming for them now. And we've got a points line here at Loftus of 59.5. Now, there's been, without having to pull to the stats, there's been some really high-scoring games at Loftus. The only thing that I will say is a lot of those really high-scoring games have been 3 o'clock or 5 o'clock kickoffs on a Saturday. Now, this game is 7 o'clock kickoff on a Friday. It is getting a bit cooler on the Highveld. So, yeah, what I'm not saying I'm still at overs. I'm definitely not an unders player here. That's without a doubt. I would still be looking at the overs. But I am tending to lean towards Southpaw there. I did have a look at this Bulls team. They definitely are a stacked side. They started to run into a bit of form, and I expect them to put Cardiff away. As I mentioned at the start of the show, I've been quite hectic. So I haven't had a good chance to look at teams of Cardiff and that. But I'd be surprised if any of the real Six Nations starters are sort of thrust back into action in South Africa. These teams, of course, will be out. I would bring them up, but quite frankly, I don't know the Cardiff team well enough to even then be able to tell you. So I just want to pop up to a couple of comments that were made at the beginning of the show when we looked at this. So let me just pull that up. We had Johan reckons overs big time here, over 59.5. And Wando saying he doesn't trust the Bulls with any handicap. The defense is unreliable. Have to agree with you there. I mean, you can often see a scenario where they get 21-0 down early and they come back and win the game, or alternatively, they get well ahead and then start to drop points. Let's move on then. I'm just going to run through these games. Apologies, I don't have a guest to chat, but I just got caught out this week, really work-wise. I was in an attorney's offices today, being grilled by it was our, if I want to call it our attorneys, but a client of mine, and quite a lot of pressure. Just going through things and that. So I didn't really get a chance to focus on the rugby. But let's have a look at the next game. Ulster minus 11.5 against Connacht. I see there's been a bit of a movement down. I did see 50.5 as far as points go. I see it has come down a bit. But to Nathan's point earlier, the URC, the South African games I'll focus on, but I'm not really too fazed by some of the other games at this stage until the teams are all back to 100% full strength. So Ulster there minus 11.5 against Connacht. If push there, just gut feel, I would be looking at the plus, but perhaps an underplay there at 49.5. The next game is Scarlets up against Zebra. Here we got a 51.5 point line, and Scarlets minus 16.5. Scarlets are one of those teams, if I remember correctly, looking at the start of the season, they don't lose that many players to Six Nations. So I'm assuming they got some of their fringe players potentially back. but they are a team that can sometimes perform a bit better in this period than some of the other teams. But no bet for me on that one. Then on Saturday, we got Lions minus 10.5 against Edinburgh. I'll certainly be looking at the points line here and conditions. I'm expecting bookies to come out probably around about 53.5, 54.5 for the points line. We'll see if I'm accurate on that one. Lions minus 10.5 against what should be an understrength Edinburgh side. I'd have to give the Lions a fair crack there. To see I'm in the wrong comment section. Points is a score too high in this game, either unders or zebra. So I'm just going to quickly, that is Admiral, I'm just going to quickly go back to that line. And he reckons either zebra plus or under 51.5 points. So thanks, Admiral, for helping me out there with that one. We then, as I say, have the lines. We don't have points lines yet. These teams, of course, only been announced, or most of the teams only been announced on Saturday. The Sharks have named their team. And although there's a couple of players that I don't really recognize there, overall it looks a pretty strong side. And they are favourites here against Munster. And if it wasn't the Sharks who've let us down so many times in the past, I'd actually make the 7.5 a pretty good bet here against Munster, who I wouldn't think are going to be at full strength for this one. Have a look out, of course, for humidity and that in Durban as well. I'll be interested to see what sort of points line we get. I'm projecting the bookmakers come in at 49.5 for this game. That's what I would expect. The next game is Benetton Treviso against the Ospreys. Here we got a handicap Benetton minus 6.5. Look, Benetton, of course, make up the bulk of that Italian side. So keep an eye on team news here, see how many of them are back into the action. Otherwise, perhaps the Ospreys might be worth a punt to pull off some sort of an upset. Let's go. And I just want to bring up Admiral coming in on Munster. He says Munster have named the travelling squad not a starting team. Pretty much all the Six Nations players are there for a burn. That's interesting. Being this across, I guess then it's just looked at next week's fixtures, but I'm imagining Munster here for 2 weeks. So I guess it's a question of whether they ease some of the guys in off the bench or just throw them straight into the deep end. So keep an eye on team news there. That's going to be pretty interesting. Johannes coming up with his treble and focusing mainly on the Super Rugby. Highlanders plus 9.5. Bulls Cardiff over 57.5. And Brumbies Chiefs under 58.5, and that works out at 11-2. That's your Huns treble there. We're almost at the end of the games, and we've got Glasgow Warriors. This is very much call it a top of the table. Clash Glasgow, if I'm not mistaken, are top of the table. Leinster not quite there, but this is very much two of the teams that are potentially expected to play in the final. I think they're the top two in the betting. And here we got Glasgow at home minus 2.5 against Leinster. Team news also going to be crucial on this one. And finally, we get to the Stormers against the Dragons. Stormers minus 27.5. This is a massive handicap, of course. Stormers not generally a side that lands these big handicaps, but I would say that if they're coming off the high against the Bulls of Loftus, I'd have to say that I certainly won't be opposing the Stormers in this one. I'll probably be waiting for points line. So anyway, a little bit of a brief sojourn there into the URC, but a good chat with Nathan on Super Rugby. Thanks to the guys in the live chat, the likes of the Admiral Mark Dunphy. Good to see you again, mate. And Johan, of course, with his treble. That's it for now. We'll see you next week for the Handicap Rugby Chat That Matters.